Okay, welcome to our second installation of Coach's Corner with the Wrestling Vault. Mitch Hancock and RJ Boudreau here to talk with you this week about composure in the corner, specifically, coaching your athletes during a competition, and the do's and don'ts of etiquette in the corner. Mitch and I can probably speak to a lot of our growing pains in this situation. We both came out right out of college. As college athletes into high school coaching. And I don't know about, I won't speak for Mitch here, but I thought I knew everything coming out of college, and the officials didn't know anything. But you just learn a lot. And I think there's a lot different too, like as college coaches, you come from that atmosphere. And, I had visions of literally wrestling Iowa and Tom Brands going on the official and grabbing an official while we were wrestling and thinking that was okay, and it's just a different level. So youth coaches kind of get that vision. That's what they're watching on TV. High school coaches kind of see that, especially those young ones, and then coming out, and there's just it's just really not, in my opinion, great for the sport, and great for sportsmanship, but also not just great for your athletes and teaching them how to be just be classy individuals, good sportsmanship, good sportsmen. So my mind has changed quite a bit since year one for me 14 years ago. I know, Mitch, I'll let you speak to that for yourself.
Yeah, and the same here. And I think with that comes maturity, right? So first 3, 4, 5, even longer, you approach, the table as like you said, everything, right? You wrestled at one of the highest levels in the NCAA Division I. So you feel like you understand the sport a little bit better maybe than a high school official, but that's not the case. And what I found more now than ever is that you start to create relationships with officials in the sport and in your area and in the state. And that makes a huge difference. So when you have created a relationship with someone, right, it makes a difference in how you approach the table and how you treat that official, and how you represent your school and your program. So it's taken a long time, and it's still obviously is a challenge, for me and many coaches across the state.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking, so Mitch is head coach at Detroit Catholic Central. I'm head coach at Lowell High School. And it's different for a head coach than it is for an assistant coach too. It's a different relationship. And I'll let you speak to this first, but just the responsibility as a head coach in creating a culture where that corner position is important, and the way you behave is important, and who is it important to? So maybe just speak to that.
Yeah, I think in being an administrator at Catholic Central, I want our program represented in the best possible light. So I know that any unsportsmanlike call from the corner will be reported back to the state and eventually get back to, our school. And we're out there to promote a positive student athlete environment. And it's on us to do that. So it's got to be communicated to coaches ahead of time. I think, each year I remind myself going into the state tournament and remind our coaches, of the expectations of our program. And that's where I use this quote that I received many years ago in coaching that I share with our coaches today. And it starts with, I've come to the frightening conclusion that I'm the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyous, right? So, if you turn that around and apply that to wrestling and coaching, you are the head coach. You are, you have the decisive ability to change the mood of any situation. So kids are going to follow your lead. And that's something we talk about often in our coaches room.
Who gave you that quote?
That was, I want to look back on it. I think that was Dave Beasley that shared that with me. And we sort of changed that to, fit our needs. So it was from a book, I believe, by Haim Ginot, Ginot. So if you're looking for it online, Haim, Haim, Ginot, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great thing to live by, not just with coaching and the way you kind of trickles down, or the effect that you have on the rest of your staff, but just kind of in life in general, just maybe as a parent, I kind of can use that quote. So that's good stuff. For me, you have to be intentional with your coaches about the way you are in the corner, and the stuff that you talked about, being in a positive light for your school, for your community, because there's so many people that are watching you, and you don't really realize it. But the little things that you do in that corner and the culture that you have. I know that when cell phones kind of first came out, we're getting notifications during a tournament, and you're sitting down looking at your cell phone, looking at a text, and it might be about wrestling. It might be about like a kid coming up or something like that, but it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a life-changing text, but the parent in the stands looking at you, looking at your phone, it doesn't look good no matter what the text is. So it's just something to think about. But I have a lot of some of my coaches that I coached early, they're slouched in the corner, because it's maybe not a huge match. They're on their phone, they're looking somewhere else, and just that situation of me seeing that and parents coming to me about those things helped me realize that somebody's always watching, especially in the corner. So it's not only like on your phone, but it's when you get heated, when you approach the table, what you're saying and how you're saying it, and how many people are watching that, and that how big of an effect that has on your brand. Your brand is a program, your brand is across the state, whether people like you or they don't like you. All of those things come in, and it's just from simply sitting in the corner and the way your posture and your nonverbals are in the corner, how important that is. And it just, you have to kind of really understand the importance of being in the corner is more than just coaching your kid.
Yeah, and I'll second that, right? The old crossing the arms, sitting back, slouching, body language is key, right? So we preach to our athletes all the time, body language, focus on your body language, make sure in between periods you're bouncing and breathing. And I think that feeds your opponent message. Well, it feeds our parents' messages in the stands. So I used to take notes, on my cell phone of our individual matches. So I'd be texting on my cell phone during a match, and I recognize how bad that looks. So maybe moving to a voice recorder to where you can process those notes on Sunday is something that I've taken to. So,
Well, I've seen you coaching too, and you have an assistant sometimes sitting there, and you'll kind of shout stuff at her, and I see her writing stuff down. So I know that you've kind of jumped around in some different things, but it is nice to have things on Google Docs or some online stuff, but just for the sake of the appearance, having an assistant there to write those things down, and that's their job, can be really helpful. But we're going to talk about break this down, the different relationships that you are dealing with when you're in the corner. And the first one we're going to talk about is the coach and wrestler relationship in the corner, what that looks like and the importance of it, and the things that you are stressing to your coaching staff and your athletes about that relationship. So I'll let Mitch kind of start this off. But obviously I think the big thing is you want to remain positive in the corner.
Yeah, you have to. Positive coaching is imperative. So, one of the things that we focus on is always staying positive on match day, right? No constructive criticism, no negativity. Tell an athlete what to do versus what not to do. So, for example, instead of yelling, don't reach, instruct your athlete to get to his ties, right? Or get to her ties. Get to your ties, work to your ties. Instead of don't cross your feet, how about short, choppy steps? And I hear, this is one I hear all the time. You have to score, get a takedown, right? Just talk to your athlete, get your number one, get your number two. And then, he's going to shoot, get your defense ready. He's going to shoot. How about head hands? Get your head and hands where they need to be, right? So instruct your athlete what to do, not exactly what not to do, right? So, and I also think back to tone. Tone is huge, right? I've come to recognize through my 15 years of coaching that certain athletes are going to respond to different tones, right? So it's not going to help an athlete if you're yelling at him, right? So coach him, talking through situations, but raising your voice and yelling at him, I don't think anyone likes to be yelled at when doing their job. All right. Or having a conversation for that matter. So I think tone is huge when sitting in the corner.
Yeah, especially too, just kind of doing a breakdown with your athletes about what they're hearing and what they're not hearing, so that you can become more efficient in the corner with your tone and with what you're saying, and save your energy, because it's a long day of coaching and stuff. And if you're screaming and yelling all day and it's not even doing any good, then why do it? So I don't know. I doubt that a lot of coaches go out and talk to their athletes about, hey, how'd I do in the corner? What did you hear? What didn't you hear? And kind of building that. And it's going to be different for every athlete. There's some athletes that have big eyes when they're wrestling, and there's other kids that are zoned in, and understanding what they want to hear, and what does them good. I just remember, we were wrestling at the team state tournament, and this was like about 7 years ago. It was Danny Cruz when he was really young. He was a state finalist for me, and wrestled at Michigan State. But he came to me and he said, "Don't ever say we need 6 here," because we needed a pin in that
Right.
situation, and it just totally messed with his mind, and he didn't get a pin, but it just totally changed everything, because I said, "Hey, we need 6." It's just one example, but he came to me and said that, and then that really kind of made me think I should be talking to my athletes about what I'm saying and what they're hearing, so that we can be efficient in with what we're doing. And it is different for every kid ever since I've been doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'll touch on that too. Is we make our athletes fill out what's called an action plan. So a postseason action plan. What are some of the key words you like hearing? What are some of the things you don't like hearing? So allow those athletes to put that on paper. And then the other thing is, you have 20, 5 assistant coaches, and then you have 10 parents in the background yelling at the top of their lungs. So I know we want to touch on it a bit. Is allow your athletes to pick who their number one coach is. So you don't have 4, 5, 6 people in the corner yelling at an individual on the mat. So I think it's good to have a coach who's giving instruction on technical aspects. And then there's a coach, right, who can feed coach number one situational, tips, I guess. 1 minute left, 30 seconds left. We're down by 1. One of my assistant coaches is really good at telling me, right, we got choice in the second, coach. We have choice in the seconds, 30 seconds left. So he's feeding me as the number one coach information on the mat. And I think that's beneficial as well.
when you say number one coach, what do you mean there?
Well, each coach in our postseason, they're able to choose their coach, the guy they want in the corner. So when you have a lot of athletes, it can be a little tricky. However, allow your athlete to pick who their number one coach is. So who they want to give them instruction, who they feel the most comfortable with, who they worked with throughout the year, right? So, for example, there's guys on my team that I struggle with coaching, just my coaching style. So I'm going to put someone in that corner who's better with that athlete. So number one coach is their go-to guy, right? The guy they trust, the guy they want to hear from. And then the second assistant in the corner should be feeding coach number one details on the match and just staying positive. His main role is to stay positive through that match.
Yeah, and I'll speak to number one coach here, for Lowell, and it's we don't necessarily label it. We don't necessarily label it number one, but especially in dual meet for individual is different, right? Because in a dual meet, you'll have 6 coaches in a corner necessarily, because there is no corner sometimes in Michigan. You're on the bench, right? And we're looking to one coach to be coaching the athlete, and the other coaches to be helping that coach, like you said. Hey, this is here, and then it's like we relay that to him, and then he tells it to the athlete. So there's only one voice, and he's not hearing 7 different voices coming from all different angles and getting coaching them too. And I'll even speak to parents too. Parents will be coaching. They've coached their kids through youth and through middle school, and then all of a sudden they get to high school, and the kid has a hard time not listening to their parent, and they're looking up in the stands. You ever had that, where a kid looks up in the stands and he doesn't look at you? I know that we try to nip that in the butt real quick, because we got to talk to our athletes. Like, listen, if we got to talk to your parents, we got to talk to your dad or whatever that is. We got to do it. But we need to be efficient. We need you to understand that we're coaching you every single day in the practice room, and you getting coaching from the stands isn't going to help us. So
Yeah, and it also doesn't help to have a heavyweight coaching yelling at a 103, right? So I mean, you have a 103 coach, let him have his personal lightweight coach, and then your other assistants should be in the back, warming their athletes up. Should be giving constructive criticism maybe after a match, right? So they should have different roles throughout the duel, taking notes on certain matches. So divide and conquer and delegate those roles.
yeah, I think we kind of went off a little bit here. So like we talked about it first. We talked about culture as a coach and your job as a head coach. And I feel like we're getting to that a little bit more right now, speaking to giving your assistant coaches specific duties during dual meets or individual tournaments. And that's your job as a head coach to kind of divvy those up. We started talking about the relationship between the coach and the athlete, and that's kind of where this came from, because you want to stay positive when you're talking to your athletes from the corner or from the bench. And I think, Mitch, there's one that's kind of stood out to you. It was a match from a couple of years ago, but it was kind of eye-opening for you. I'll let you speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I just remember receiving a text about this mic'd up episode from the 2018 Midlands where Brewer and Storianolo, the coaches at Northwestern, are coaching Sebastian Riviera through his upset of Spencer Lee. So pay attention to the corner. I think Brewer and Storianolo are mic'd up, and just listen to the positivity coming out of Brewer and the instruction coming out of Brewer. You can tell that Cody Brewer, national champ at Oklahoma, he's now at Virginia Tech, was an assistant there. You could tell that Brewer had game plans with Sebastian prior to this match. And then listen to Coach Storianolo, who's the head coach, sort of take a back seat here and just coach instruction and, help Brewer in staying positive. But this sort of video is absolutely game changing. And I think it's a great example for all of us as coaches.
So a couple of things too, though. So, Sebastian Rivera, probably the big underdog here against Spencer Lee, who's, defending national champion and ranked #1 in the country. And I'm not sure if Sebastian Rivera was ranked #2, but he was probably close to it. And so this is an example, I think, of kind of where the inspiration from the wrestling vault kind of came for me, because I'm watching all these videos and I'm learning from them all the time. And it's just nice to have, Flow Wrestling does a good job of putting these things up and miking people up, but just kind of getting all your stuff in one spot and having things to get from the wrestling vault, it just kind of came to me. That's why we did the wrestling vault. So I'm going to share this little clip here. And again, pay attention to the stuff that Mitch was talking about. Here we go.
Make it work. Two hands to it. Get to it again. Good job. Keep him guessing here. Keep him guessing. Wrestle, 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 wrestle. Good job. Wrestle. Good. Nothing there. Go get him. Go get him. Got a minute. Good job, Rivera. Good job. Good job. Good job. Fakes in the open. Fakes in the open. Transfer you want him. That's it. Keep him guessing. Keep him guessing. It'll be there. It'll be there. Pull the trigger. Walk him down. Good job. Your hands up. Good job. Good job. Every shot. 30 seconds. Good job. Good job. Snap, go. Snap, go. Snap, go. Good. Good. In and out. In and out.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. It gives me goosebumps. You could tell the game plan was to stay in and out, create distance, don't get caught up in the ties. And, how many times did Brewer, good job, good job. You love hearing that stuff. To me, that's coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I did remember watching that mic'd up and thinking those same kind of things, but it does kind of goes right into, what we're talking about, just talking to your athlete, not necessarily talking to the official. We're going to kind of get into that part next. So great example for coaches. We got that off Flow Wrestling. And again, that was the Midland finals between Sebastian Rivera and Spencer Lee.
Yeah, and we'll have that linked up in our release of this vlog, right? So we'll have tips and so on the site. So we'll have that linked up as well.
Yeah, we'll have an outline for you that'll kind of be in pretty much our show notes. We'll have that linked up for you guys. So we're going to talk about now just some common mistakes that we make in the corner, and specifically the coach and official relationship, the official being the referee. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is talking to the official during a match instead of talking to your athlete. A lot of the officials in our area on the west side of Michigan will talk about wrestlers or coaches coach and officials officiate, and it rings true. I know it's kind of cliche and easy to say, but you should really listen to that and try to take that and put it into to your coaching. But one of the biggest mistakes is coming to the head table hot, coming to the head table all worked up and arms kind of flaring, and what that's going to do to an official when he has to come to the table. Pretty much it's going to say, I don't really want to listen to you. Let's get back to wrestling. But Mitch, go ahead on that one.
Yeah, I'm terrible at this, right? So I'm too emotional, right? Sometimes I get flustered in what I want to say, what I want to ask. So You have to understand that you can't approach the table to question a call. So, questioning call versus asking clarity on a role or position is totally different. So on our staff, I appoint certain coaches during a match to approach the table. So if I know I'm not very good at it, why should I approach the table, right? So Anthony Biondo is really good at staying calm, and talking through the situation. Bob Rose, another one that's really calm. So those are my guys when it comes to questioning a call that approach the table. And Dave Beasley's another one. So I know it's not a strength of mine. Why do it, right? Why do it?
Yeah, I think it's something that we talk about, and that I'm not trying to say that I'm good at this, but I am always working at it. It's something that I work at. And you mentioned it. It is coming to the table with a question and as calm as you possibly can. And it's very difficult to do, because usually when you're going to the table, it's to question a certain situation that an official made. And usually that is an important part of a match. And there's a lot of people kind of watching you. So just try walking to the head table and raising your hand while you're there, and being ready for the official to come to you, and then having your question ready. And I always kind of compare it to Jeopardy. In Jeopardy, when you answer, you have to answer in the form of a question. You have to come to the head table with a question ready. So for example, let's just say there's an out of bounds call that you want to go and get some clarification on. Go to the head table, try to walk to the head table, wait for the official to come, maybe raise your hand. And then when the official comes, try saying, I really believe that my wrestler was in bounds in that situation. I'm wondering if you could go to your assistant official and just talk to him and see what he saw. All right. So you ask the official a question to go do something. He'll say, usually in that situation, he'll say, sure. He'll go over and ask, and then, the call is the call, versus my guy was in bounds. I don't know what the heck you saw there, but my guy was in bounds. It's a completely different, but that's what I said in the second part of it, was mostly what coaches will do in that situation. So trying to practice that and think of all the different things. Stalling isn't necessarily ever something you'll go to the head table for, right? Or maybe if it's a caution or something like that, and if there is no a second official, then a lot of times you're not going to go to the head table in my situation, because usually I'm just looking for clarification on something. And it's hard to go to the head table or something like that, So I don't know if you have any stories of situations like that, but those have been kind of my.
Yeah, you have to choose your battles, right? You can't be that coach that approaches the table in every match. Otherwise you're creating outs for your athletes. They want you to approach the table, and then when you don't, they don't feel like they're sticking up for you and don't want to wrestle through the situation. So choose when to approach a table. All right. Make sure that typically it's a call that didn't go your way, or else you're not going to approach the table. So I wrestled for Tom Borelli, and I got to tell you, he doesn't approach the table. He doesn't question a call. Wrestle through the situation and continue to wrestle and score points. So, I'm used to having a coach who never approached the table and never made excuses, for his athletes. So, I encourage other coaches to do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very difficult to do. And one of the things that I do as a coach is I videotape all of my matches for all of my kids for several reasons. Most of the time we want our kids to be able to watch their own film and see what they did wrong, which is really beneficial. And we could talk about that in a different episode of Coach's Corner. But the second reason is because of helping officials. Okay. I will send videos to officials all the time. And I am very careful of sending the officials video to say I was right and you were wrong. That's not what I do it for. Although sometimes you really want to do that. Again, when I send it, I'm asking for clarification, and I'm asking for just working together with the official. I'm looking for an opportunity for the official to teach me something, and then also to help the official kind of see what he did. And a lot of times officials say, yeah, I screwed this up here. It doesn't make it any better for the kid that wrestled, but it does help the official and see maybe what he could have did differently with his mechanics. And again, it goes back to what you said earlier about the relationship with the official that you're trying to make from officials around the area. And I think they really like when I do that. They always are very appreciative of when I send them the video. And oftentimes officials now know that I do that, and they will reach out to me and say, hey, do you have the video from that match? I'd really like to see that.
Yeah, and I think it also goes on the other end, making sure that you send a video if a referee does an exceptional job, right, in a pressure-filled environment. So you get to a 1-2 finals, and he's in a tough match, and or a young official who just got on scene, who just handles himself really well. So in our state of Michigan, there's regionals, different sections across the state, and they all have their associations with, head officials. So create a relationship with the head official in your regional, in your section, and then send them those notes, right? Make sure you compliment maybe an official who does a great job after a long day. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's a great point. It's probably need to do more of the positivity part than you do any of the critiquing part, to be honest with you.
We all like to be complimented, right? So, if an official does a great job, send them a note, send them an email, shoot them a text, right? Everyone's on social media. I think it's important to highlight those moments for those guys, because I think it keeps them going.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're talking about composure in the corner. Kind of wrapping this up. Mitch, do you have anything to say out to those young coaches, or any coach out there, or parents, or anybody about wrestling coaches, composure in the corner?
Yeah, just learn a lesson from me. I was terrible at it my first 5 years. My God, I had to have a leash on my belt to keep me from leaving the corner. Sometimes I feel like those tape marks across the mat were created for me, right? So sort of keep me in that corner. But, I think a lot of it comes with maturing, right? And creating relationships with officials, and just understanding the direction you want to take your program. If you want your program to be a classy top end program, right? I think you have to create great relationships with officials and people in the sport. And that's why we're in this business, right? Overall is to create relationships and teach our young guys how to handle tough situations. So composure in the corner is important. Don't panic, right? Or I think that leads to your athlete panicking. And choose what you do best, right? If you're not great at doing a certain thing, allow an assistant coach to control that certain situation.
I'll kind of speak to what I'd like to say. And I think the big difference is college versus high school and youth. I think a lot of times, some of the coaches that are really into wrestling and kind of watching video, you can watch a lot of college matches now, is just understanding that youth and high school wrestling is completely different than college wrestling. And the officials are completely different as well. You have a college official that's his job. It's one of his part-time jobs. He's a professional at it. In high school and youth, you guys have people that are doing this as a hobby. They do take it serious, but it's just not something that they're doing to make a living. They're doing it because they want to help the sport. And I think it's really important that we understand that it is different. So to not do what Tom Brands does in the corner, or some other coaches when they're running out on the mat and doing some of the antics and things that they're doing, that's their brand and their choice. You really have to think about what you want your program and your personal brand to be in the corner, because kind of everybody's watching. So with that, I think that kind of wraps things up for this week's installation of Coach's Corner, unless you got anything else.
No, just, I'm excited, obviously, to continue these Coaches Corners and talk about different aspects, and, just try to give our followers and our subscribers, just some tools and tips. So appreciate your time today, RJ. This was fun.
Yeah. And again, if you guys have things that you want to hear us talk about, you maybe know something about our program that you want us to talk about, please speak up and do that. If you have our phone number or email, you can send us that, or just go on to wrestlingvault.com and go to the contact page and give us a little shout of what you want to talk about. So with that, we're going to wrap this up, and hope you guys have a good one.